It was supposed to be a normal evening. The kind of night where the biggest concern was whether I'd tighten the valve just right so it wouldn't leak again tomorrow. The kind of night where Olivia and I existed in the same space, moving in quiet synchronization. Me fixing things around the house, her curled up somewhere with a book and a cup of tea. That's how it had always been. The soft hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen was barely noticeable, blending into the low murmurs of a distant TV program. Olivia's footsteps shuffled against the hardwood floor, slow, unhurried, probably making herself a cup of chamomile tea, her usual routine before bed. The scent of lavender and warm honey lingered faintly in the air. Everything was peaceful. Then the door swung open, hard. The sudden movement sent a rush of cold air slicing through the warm, damp atmosphere of the bathroom. I flinched instinctively, nearly losing my grip on the wrench. My breath caught in my throat as I looked up, half expecting Olivia to be standing there with her usual amused expression, teasing me for spending too long fussing over small repairs. But this wasn't that. This wasn't normal. Instead, Olivia stood in the doorway, naked, breathless, her chest rising and falling in sharp, uneven bursts. Her skin, usually porcelain smooth, was damp with sweat. Droplets clung to her collarbone, ran down the curve of her shoulder, disappearing into the hollow between her ribs. Her hands trembled ever so slightly at her sides. It took my brain an extra second to process what I was seeing. This wasn't just her walking into the bathroom. She had burst in, her eyes wide and almost wild, locked onto mine for half a second before flicking away, darting toward the shower handle. "Darling, I need to shower now," she gasped, voice tight, breathless. She moved past me, the air around her charged with something I couldn't put my finger on. Urgency, maybe even fear. I turned slightly, caught off guard, my knees still pressing into the cool tiles. "What?" I started, but she didn't wait for me to finish. She reached for the knob, twisting it sharply, sending steaming water gushing from the showerhead. I stayed frozen. Not because I hadn't seen Olivia naked before. We were married, after all. But this was different. She wasn't standing in front of me like my wife, comfortable and at ease. She wasn't the Olivia who slipped into bed next to me every night, pressing her cold feet against mine just to make me flinch. This Olivia, right here, right now, was someone else entirely. My brain kicked into overdrive trying to rationalize. Maybe she had just gone for a run, but she never ran this late. Maybe she had a bad day. Maybe she just needed a hot shower to relax. But my gut rejected every excuse I tried to conjure up. Something wasn't right. I pushed myself up from the floor, wiping my damp hands against my jeans. I should have said something, asked something, but the words stuck in my throat. I watched her, the way her hands shook slightly as she combed her fingers through her hair, the way she positioned herself directly beneath the scalding water as if she was desperate for it to wash something away. I swallowed hard. What was she trying to erase? The pit in my stomach grew heavier. I wanted to believe this was nothing. I wanted to believe she was just acting a little strange. But the air between us had shifted, thick and suffocating in a way I couldn't ignore. The peaceful evening was gone. Something had shattered, and I needed to know why. I took a step back, my body moving on instinct, giving her space she hadn't even asked for. But something in my gut told me to keep looking. And that's when I saw it. It was subtle, almost easy to miss. A shadow against the soft glow of the bathroom light. A trick of the steam, maybe. But then she shifted, turning slightly under the water, and my stomach lurched. A mark. A handprint. My breath hitched. It was there, clear as day, splayed across the upper part of her thigh, red, fresh, distinct. My mind short-circuited, scrambling for logic, for some kind of explanation that didn't send my heart into a free fall. Had she fallen? Maybe she'd leaned against something, sat too long in one position? Maybe it was nothing. But it wasn't just any mark. It was too large, too fresh, too perfect, and it sure as hell wasn't mine. A cold, sick feeling crept up my spine, pooling at the base of my skull. My hands clenched at my sides, nails digging into my palms. I wanted to look away, wanted to shake off the creeping realization. But my eyes wouldn't move. I turned half on autopilot, intending to leave, to put some distance between me and whatever the hell this was. But my feet wouldn't carry me out the door. I couldn't tear my eyes away. The shower was still running full blast, steam curling around her body, swallowing her whole. But all I could see was that mark. The shape of it. The way the fingers curled just slightly, as if someone had gripped her, pressed into her skin, held her still. Something twisted deep in my gut. A slow, burning kind of realization. I needed to be wrong. My chest felt tight, breath coming in slow, uneven pulls as my brain ran through every possible scenario. Had I touched her there today? No. I would remember. Could it have been me? No. It didn't match. My hand was smaller. My pulse pounded in my ears. She hadn't noticed. She was still standing there, head tilted forward under the water, hands running over her arms, almost like she was scrubbing at something, like she was trying to make something disappear. My heart slammed against my ribs. What the hell was I looking at? I blinked hard, trying to steady my breathing. Maybe this was nothing. Maybe I was overreacting. But deep down, something primal was screaming at me. You already know what this is. No, I didn't. I refused to believe it. But the weight in my chest told me I did. And I had no idea what the hell to do next. I needed answers. My hands trembled as I wiped them on my jeans, my fingertips still damp from the shower mist. My mind was spinning, trying to rationalize what I had just seen, trying to tell myself that I was overthinking, that I was being paranoid. But my gut said otherwise. I should have asked her. I should have demanded an explanation right then and there. But I didn't. I stood there, swallowing down the questions that clawed their way up my throat, telling myself this was nothing. It wasn't nothing. It was everything. I clenched my jaw, exhaling sharply as I took a step back. Olivia stood under the cascading water, her back to me, the steam swirling around her. To anyone else, she would have looked normal, just a woman taking a shower after a long day. But I wasn't anyone else. I was her husband, and I knew her. Every shift in her demeanor, every little tell. And right now, she was hiding something. I stared at her, at the way her fingers gripped her arms a little too tightly, at the way she leaned forward, letting the water hit her face as if she was trying to drown out everything else, as if she was willing it to wash something away. The uneasy feeling in my chest tightened. I couldn't stop replaying the last few weeks in my mind. The late nights at work, the distant looks, the hushed phone calls, the way she had started turning away from me in bed, curling up on the edge instead of pressing her body against mine like she always used to. I had told myself she was just tired, that she was stressed, that maybe she was dealing with something personal she hadn't found the words to share yet. I had trusted her, and that trust had kept me blind. But now it all made sense. My stomach twisted as the truth pieced itself together, moment by moment, memory by memory. The nights she had come home late, her hair a little messier than when she left, the sudden, unexplained need for privacy, the way she would put her phone face down on the table, keeping it just out of my reach. I had dismissed it all, brushed it off, convinced myself that I was reading too much into things. But I wasn't. The proof had been staring me in the face for weeks, whispering at me to open my goddamn eyes, and I had ignored it. Until now. The rage inside me simmered, low and slow, bubbling just beneath the surface. It wasn't explosive, not yet. It was controlled, cold. I needed more. I needed confirmation. And that's when it hit me. She wasn't just hiding something from me. She was hiding someone. Olivia. I said her name, steady, firm, but with an edge of something sharper curling at the edges. Something darker. She didn't respond. Her fingers moved under the rushing water, absent-mindedly tracing patterns against her skin, avoiding eye contact, avoiding me. Her shoulders were too rigid, her posture too tight. Every inch of her body screamed tension. I stepped forward. The space between us felt smaller, suffocating. The sound of the water hitting the tiles was deafening. I clenched my jaw, my pulse hammering in my ears. I couldn't take it anymore. Who is he? The words left my mouth before I even fully processed them. Her fingers stopped moving. Her entire body stilled, as if the very question had frozen her in place. Then, slowly, her eyes flickered to the side. Not at me. Never at me. She was searching for an escape, a way out of this conversation, but there was none. Her lips parted, just slightly, as if she wanted to speak, but no words came out. I felt something inside me snap. I'm not stupid, Olivia. My voice came out lower this time, controlled but firm. I stepped closer, the heat of the steam clinging to my skin. My fists clenched at my sides, my nails pressing into my palms. What's that on your thigh? She didn't move, didn't react. The silence that followed was thick, stretching between us, coiling in the air like smoke. For a moment, I thought maybe, just maybe, she'd find a way out of this. A reason, an excuse, a pathetic attempt to lie her way past the inevitable. But she didn't. She couldn't. She knew what I saw, and I knew what it meant. I wasn't imagining things. I wasn't being paranoid. I had seen the evidence. The handprint was real, and so was the betrayal. Her lips parted, but no sound came out at first. Her eyes darted from me to the running water, then to the floor, as if searching for something, anything, to anchor herself. Then, finally, her voice cracked through the thick silence. Mason, I don't know what you're talking about. It was weak, hollow, the kind of lie a person tells when they already know they've lost. I didn't flinch, didn't blink. She was scrambling, reaching for an escape, but there was none. I took a slow, measured breath. My fingers twitched at my sides, my fists half clenched. Not in anger, not yet, just restraint. Don't do that, I said, voice low, sharp. Don't stand there and insult me with this pathetic act. She swallowed, her shoulders rising slightly. I stepped closer. I saw the mark, Olivia. I saw it. Don't pretend you didn't make a choice. Her entire body stiffened. Her throat bobbed in a hard swallow, but she still wouldn't look at me. That flicker in her eyes, fear, guilt, regret. It was all there, swimming beneath the surface. But none of it was enough. I needed more. I needed the truth. My voice came out colder now, controlled but edged with something dangerous. You've been seeing someone, haven't you? That was it. The moment it all came crashing down. Her breath hitched, a small, involuntary reaction, so quick, so subtle but undeniable. She flinched like I'd hit her, even though I hadn't moved an inch. The silence stretched between us, suffocating, pressing against my ribs. Then, slowly, she took a step back. Just one. But it was enough to tell me everything. She had already surrendered. She knew it was over. And she knew I knew. The air between us felt heavier, like gravity had shifted, pulling everything down with it. She hesitated, fingers trembling, voice barely a whisper. His name is Daniel. My stomach twisted into something ugly. The air was sucked from my lungs. Daniel. The same Daniel she always casually mentioned in conversation. The one she praised for his dedication and work ethic. The one I had shaken hands with at the company Christmas party. I clenched my jaw. A familiar face. A friend, even. It was worse than I thought. I forced the next words out, my voice eerily steady. How long? She hesitated. That second of delay was everything. A few months, she admitted. My chest tightened. A few months. While I had been coming home every night, cooking dinner, kissing her goodnight, making plans for the future. She had been with him. Betrayal burned through my veins like poison. I stared at her, my expression unreadable, though my pulse pounded like war drums in my ears. I was going to end it, she whispered. I swear, Mason, I never meant to hurt you. I let out a hollow, bitter laugh. Never meant to hurt me? I repeated, shaking my head. You're standing in front of me, naked, trying to wash another man's touch off your skin, And you never meant to hurt me? She winced, as if my words had physically struck her. But I didn't care. There was nothing she could say. No excuse that would change what she had done. She had made her choice. And now, she was going to face the consequences. I wasn't going to just forgive her. I wasn't going to let this go. But I wasn't going to scream, or break things, or let my emotions get the best of me. No, Olivia needed to feel this in the way that mattered most. She needed to understand the weight of her choices. To know, really know, what it felt like to watch something you built crumble right in front of you. And the best part? I wasn't going to be the one to tear it down. She had already done that herself. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. Instead, I sat with it. Let the betrayal sink in. Let the anger cool into something sharper, something precise. I needed control. I needed to make sure she felt the sting of what she had done. And so, I did the only thing that made sense. I picked up my phone. I scrolled through my contacts, my finger hovering over a name I never thought I'd have to use like this. Jessica, Daniel's wife, the woman who had probably smiled at Olivia in passing, made polite conversation at company events, completely unaware that the same woman was sleeping with her husband. She deserved to know. So I told her, not in anger, not in blind rage, but in detail, cold, excruciating detail. I made sure she had everything, screenshots of messages I pulled from Olivia's phone when she wasn't looking, timestamps, receipts. Every piece of evidence that would make it impossible for Daniel to weasel his way out of it. There would be no denials, no excuses, just the truth staring back at her. I hit send. The fallout was swift, brutal. Jessica didn't just confront Daniel. She destroyed him. Word spread like wildfire. The whispers in the office turned into full-blown accusations. HR got involved. Daniel lost everything. His job, his reputation, his marriage. And Olivia? She tried to act like it wasn't affecting her. Tried to pretend like she could salvage what was left of her carefully constructed life. But she was unraveling. I could see it in the way she moved around the house, hesitant, like a stranger in her own home. The way she would glance at her phone, dread flashing across her face every time another message lit up the screen. The life she thought she could keep was slipping right through her fingers. And the best part? I didn't have to do anything else. I just watched. Watched as the world she built on lies collapsed. Watched as she realized, far too late, that there was no coming back from this. And then, when there was nothing left, when all she had was the silence of an empty house and the weight of what she had done, I left. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. She was already standing there, alone, drowning in her own guilt. And that, the city stretched before me, bathed in the warm hues of the setting sun. From my apartment window, I could see the golden shimmer reflecting off the harbor, the water rippling like molten glass, the distant hum of traffic, the occasional honk of a car below. It all felt muted, like white noise in the background of a life that had finally shifted back into focus. I exhaled slowly, my fingers wrapped around a glass of whiskey, the amber liquid catching the fading light. The ice clinked softly as I swirled it, watching it melt, watching it dissolve. Just like everything Olivia had tried to do to me. She thought she had taken everything. She thought she had left me broken. But the truth? I had never felt stronger. There was no bitterness anymore. No lingering resentment. Just clarity. The kind of clarity that only comes when you strip away the lies, the betrayals, the weight of a love that was never as real as you once thought it was. I had walked away with nothing except the truth. And that was enough. I thought about her. Not with anger. Not with sadness. Just curiosity. Where was she now? What was she doing? I imagined her sitting in the house we used to share, staring at her phone, waiting for a call that would never come. The silence stretching around her, thick and suffocating. She had always hated silence. Always needed background noise. Music, a TV playing in another room, even just the hum of conversation. But now she had to sit in it, in the absence of me, in the absence of us. She had learned the hard way that the truth always finds its way to the surface. There was no escaping it. She had built her world on deception, and like all things built on lies, it had crumbled beneath her feet. And I didn't have to lift a single finger. I had thought revenge would feel different, that it would come with some grand moment of satisfaction, some fiery explosion of triumph. But in the end, it wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was just quiet. And that quiet was everything. I took another sip of whiskey, letting the burn settle deep in my chest. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to break anything. I didn't need to make her suffer. She had already done that to herself. All I needed was the truth, and the truth had set me free.
What this story teaches us. Betrayal is a wound that cuts deep, but the real pain isn't in the act itself, it's in the realization that someone you trusted, someone you loved, was capable of doing it. But here's the thing, pain fades, wounds heal, and life moves on. This isn't just a story about revenge, it's a story about resilience. About knowing your worth. About understanding that sometimes the best revenge isn't shouting or breaking things, it's walking away with your dignity intact, knowing the truth is enough. So, what do you think? Does revenge ever truly satisfy? Or is the best payback simply moving on and letting karma do its job? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, I'd love to hear your take on it. And hey, if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. Because trust me, I've got plenty more where this came from. Until next time.